Just having a quick check of the maps. It looks like both players do have 3 nearby hunts. Is that starting nearby hunt for Klestree? Couple coin mines each side, 3 coin mines. I'm happy with this map balance to carry on with. This map certainly does have some interesting spawns occasionally, but both players having access to near 3x3 extra hunts and even coin mines. I think we're ready to start this series off, and let's check if once the game begins.
Hmm.
I've still got my fingers crossed. I've got my fingers crossed, my toes crossed. Um, I've even crossed the legs underneath my desk. I don't know what else I can cross. I can cross my eyes, but that's probably not going to help me for the rest of the series.
Yeah, well, maybe you can just listen to sounds and do the casting.
I tell you what, I do know that Klestree takes a while.
Just a toaster. Um,
Klestree with the wooden PC. Um, Recently casted some games with Klestree and somebody else from the community who had a bit of lag issues, but actually it was Klestree who took a while to come in. So maybe his loading bar is halfway up the screen so far, but I'm expecting excellent Vil micro from Stanley to start off this game. Maybe
yeah.
two Vils on the deer, 1 Vil each on the food crates, maybe 1 on the wood crate as well, and micro in that explorer to get a good scouting action, possibly scouting behind the base first, and then pathing towards the north side, where we do see some extra interesting treasures. 80 food in his path, 75 food as well, and the Iroquois Tomahawk guarded by 3 wolves as well. So 3 treasures Stanley can easily pick up there.
Hmm. And tonight it's also be right back washing my car.
I suppose right now
Oh
I could be
Lord.
eating a roast dinner as well, or
Yeah. Oh well. One thing to mention, it's a coin start.
um, we might actually have a situation where actually the players have just actually failed to connect instead of, oh, hang on a minute, 1 second, and we've
Yep.
started.
Yeah, we have started.
So, welcome back, guys. My name's Harrison. We are joined in the semi-final of the beginner division between Stanley Winston and Klestree. The first game in this matchup is a Brit mirror to be played on New England. We've checked the hunts. The map balance is fair. Both players are ready to go. And I'm joined for the co-casting today from Hugh Long, who's one of the retired community friends of ESOC, does quite a lot of the community posts, and will be joining me for the co-casting. So, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing very well. Well, quite well. It's quite late here, but I'm looking forward to it. So let's see. It's a coin start. Both players have opted for a manor house, and then yeah,
I was about to let the players know that it's like, oh, both players have 3 nearby hunts, but I thought actually no, we'll let both the players do that scouting information, and as we can see, the path that Stanley has scouted, he's gone straight to the north, which is where all the good treasures are. However, at the moment, he hasn't scouted his second or third hunt. Not that it's a issue or a priority at the moment, but I have let the players know that I'm happy with the map balance. So maybe it's Stanley to think what he's got, and he's kind of walked in a straight line here. And what has he gone past, and what is he trying to find? He's now come across 100 food treasure. So yeah, nice treasure for Stanley to pick up. We do see. Where's Klestree? Klestree is working his way on a 90 food
yeah,
treasure, and many food treasures on this map. We did see the 75 foods to the south, as well as another food treasure I think Stanley's already picked up.
yeah. And we can see Stanley scouting with his sheep, and that's actually a very good trick.
Yeah, no, really nicely from Stanley there. I think both players realise that in a brick mirror there's only one scouting unit, and so those sheep are relatively safe just to path around the back of the base, and from that he's now seen this 135 XP treasure, another sheep. He hasn't scouted to the far south of his base where his extra hunt lies, and to the east where his third hunt. So at the moment, Stanley's probably thinking, where my hunt spawn, but rest assured, Stanley, you do have a decent map. Same map as Klestree, relatively speaking, but you will have to look for it. Come across another 75 food, and both players getting a relatively fast age up, both going up with 16 vills, the standard vills to age up with a single manor house, or pardon me, Klestree has gone for a second manor house, and I think that was funded on the 95 wood treasure he got earlier in the game, so looks like Klestree has advanced one settler before Stanley Winston here.
They are both going for the governor, which is tower plus 200 coin. I think both players are going for maybe center and gain control there. Maybe. Like musketeers, so on, popping out.
Oh no! Do you see? Klestree's just stolen the two sheep from Stanley, who was trying to scout, but he scouted a little bit too far, and Klestree has already chucked down his home city flag into this, the offensive pond, or Stanley's home pond. Maybe not planning to send the caravels straight away, but in anticipation that if maybe the APM gets a little bit too much from later, he could just send the caravels and not worry about where his shipment point is, and has moved it to where the pond gets a little bit wider to ensure both caravels spawn. A couple manor houses up front for Klestree should provide him some vills to build extra buildings like barracks. Outpost wagon moving very forward and going straight onto Stanley's pond, and with this forward home city water flag, maybe we might see a very fast 2 caravel shipments.
Both players are opting for the center, so we are going to see some classic mirror. He said, no. Stanley went back for it a bit.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned from Stanley's point of view already. I've just seen his deck, and he has no water cards, so no ships, no fishing upgrades, no schooners, and so an outpost on the southern coast, as well as having nothing to really defend his near-side ponds. It's slightly interesting opening from Stanley so far, and an interesting deck for this it's a unique map to say the least as well, and he's doing his best to herd in his 4th and 5th hunt, but actually hasn't even scouted his 2nd, which has now walked to the far south of the map, and I'm not too sure Stanley's actually ever going to scout this, because it's not really normal that the land extends this far south onto New England, so maybe Stanley might see it in the Fortress Age, or later on with line of sight increases, but for the time being, Stanley is unaware of his hunt situation.
Yeah, but to note is that, does it really matter that much if it's a Brit mirror, but both players just opt for land units?
Well, yeah, so the hunts at this point don't really matter, because Stanley's done a great job herding his 4th and 5th, and maybe it's just a nice little present for him later when he scouts his far southern herd. Klestree is currently focused on his 2 in-base hunts, and he had another nearby hunt which has been herded in, actually. So Klestree has already got his nearby starting hunt and 2 extra hunts underneath his town centre, ready to be used. And Klestree's build order so far is the 3 vills, but then the 700 wood, 600 wood. He's already got some decent architects of hunting dogs, steel traps, and currently at 90 mana pop. And it's very similar for both players. We do see 10 musketeers marching their way across the field into Stanley's base, and has just come across Stanley's barracks, who's also gone for a 2 barrack start and managed to get 8 musketeers out. So similar openings for both players. However, Klestree has the military advantage, especially with another reinforcing batch of 7 moving across the map, and maybe this might give confidence for Klestree to ship his 2 caravels to the pond and basically rally his military around to the 2 ships.
Yeah, but what will the next shipment be from Stanley? Will it be 6 Musketeers? Yeah, will it be 6 Musketeers, 6 longbows, or an economic shipment?
I think investing in military for a military shipment won't be the worst idea. He does have 5 manor houses going down in his base on top of his hunt, so his eco is definitely not lagging, and Klestree has gone for an early Musketeer attack card, and it could be the same card that Stanley is opting to send as well. We have to see what Stanley will send behind this. His next card is about to come in very, very soon, possibly another 5 seconds, 10 seconds, so we'll see what that opening card is, but both players going pure Musketeer spam into game 1.
Yeah, the usual classic Musketeer spam from Brett Mirror. It's like very usual.
Oh, so Stanley's gone for the 5 Vils, but now Klestree is moving in with stronger Musketeers, and I'm sure Klestree will have a look at the Musketeer stats of Stanley, and we'll see he does have the card advantage, and with a numerical advantage as well. I think Klestree's just going to push the advantage here.
Actually, Klestree got more Musketeers at this point. 29 versus 15.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage, and he's also probably seen that Stanley's Musketeers are weaker as well, so I don't think Klestree's going to back out, and with this pond control as well, and a few hunts walking very close to this pond, we would either see the Musketeer HP coming in next to Klestree, or the 2 Caravels, and both shipments here will be very good shipments to send.
But Stanley currently has like 5 villages up from Klestree. Yes, you are absolutely right. 2 Caravels just arrived.
But this is interesting. Klestree has sent 2 Caravels, but sent it to the sea, and I know his army was nearby the sea, so it's good support for him there, but he's not going to find anything else on the coast. He may be able to take down this barracks from Stanley, but now he's getting pinned in by these Musketeers, who's also got the Musketeer attack cards, and now Stanley has more units than Klestree. I think Klestree kind of needs to try and fight near his warships, or wait for the next card to come in.
And now we can see the problem with 2 Caravels not being shipped to the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was really worried for that when that shipment came in on the sea. Because he did move it from the ponds to the sea, but now he's down in Musketeer count, 26 to 30. He's just got a big batch behind to reinforce, but Stanley will soon be getting another batch out from his own barracks. And looking at units in queue, he's got currently 10 in queue. Will he get the 10 Musketeers out before his barracks goes down? It's close, and oh no!
Oh,
just like 2 seconds too late there.
Yeah.
So Stanley working away on the outpost by Klestree, and it looks like Klestree had the early map control in terms of confining Stanley to his own base, but now with Stanley pushing out on the map with upgrading Musks, 2 carded, Musketeer attack and HP, Caravels from Klestree in the far South Sea, Stanley is safe just to push forward into Klestree's base and has picked up a few villagers from Klestree. I know that Stanley as well he's only lost Musketeers. No settlers have gone down for Stanley, so economic advantage currently for Stanley Winston, and the more he can trade now in the Age 2, the better the situation for Stanley will be as the game progresses.
Klestree also got Musketeer HP right now, so them Musketeers would be like an equal fight. But Stanley got much more Musketeers. It's 47 now against 26.
Yeah.
33 actually.
But Klestree has now seen Stanley's villagers, Stanley's has now seen Klestree's villagers, and we see all the units marching to the north side of the map straight away to try and basically defend their own villagers while pick off the others. And Klestree has seen he's got a good trade. He's going to see all his villagers and get quite excited, but this large reinforcing mass from Stanley Winston will probably push Klestree back, and I'm not too sure Klestree has seen his hunts basically to the 12 o'clock position on the map. That is Klestree's own hunt and safely to be gathered, but he hasn't seen it yet. Big engagement, musketeer on musketeer action near the stagecoach route on the top side. No trading post has been put down, but Klestree, having to run away with a inferior mass of units, has lost quite a few units in that retreat there, and 44 units on top of for Stanley instead of 28 for Klestree. It looks like Stanley has forced back Klestree's eco, and if Klestree loses his hunts, he won't have many other villagers gathering. I don't see where his other units are, so a few settlers gathering berry bushes at home, but he hasn't seen this other hunts to the north side.
Klestree is going to have to pull back, or pull his fields to fight, maybe. No. His fields don't have the great coat, so
yeah, very risky from Klestree here, having to try and tank the villagers, but he hasn't got greatcoats in at the moment, and although he's done reasonably well to try and trade off, he's still down about 20 units in the military population and also down 20 eco population, so Stanley pushing forward with his advantage, gathering in the centre map unchallenged, gathering to the north now unchallenged, and Klestree has to run away, and surely he must have seen this north hunts. It must be part of the scouting pattern early in the game just to try and find the extra hunts, but it looks like Klestree isn't, and he's kind of all out of food sources. He's frantically putting his villagers onto the trees nearby to try and get something going, but I'm not too sure Klestree has much follow-up behind this.
Now Stanley is again on Klestree's eco, and well, Klestree is gathering berries now.
Yeah, he's been forced onto the berries because of no extra hunt. He's had to send 700 food as well to try to help maintain that food production to train more musketeers. Stanley's army has kind of circled around behind Klestree's to cut off any reinforcements and force Klestree into the middle of the map. And just imagine if Klestree had those two caravels in either the north or the south ponds, could rally underneath the caravels and try and defend. Remember, Stanley has no caravel shipment of his own. He should have had those two caravels in deck, but has currently had to make do with a pure land deck, and Stanley has still got this eco population of about 20 lead, and now 49 musketeers to 14 from Stanley.
Actually, speaking of two caravels, I'm not entirely sure if it's worth the investment if none of the players actually go for water eco.
No, well, certainly sending the two caravels into the South Sea blinds was risky play from Klestree. Also, Klestree could have scouted Stanley's deck and would have not have seen any schooners or rendering plants or other ship upgrades, so there's no inclination that Stanley went to the sea, and Klestree's realised that his eco is down, his military is down, and he had no way back into that game, and so has to resign there. So GG, Stanley Winston taking that first game, and it's a bit of a shame there. Klestree had the advantage in terms of military presence on the map early in the game, but couldn't keep it up.
Yeah, and he also kind of, in my opinion, wasted one shipment to ship that two caravels, and to a shipment point that didn't really mean too much.
Those caravels did manage to pick off two barracks, a manor house as well, and probably did pick up a couple of musketeers, not too many, but had engagements near his water shipment flag near the rocks, basically in the middle of the sea, but also once he moved in towards Stanley's town centre nearby. Looks like that none of the caravels received any town centre fire, so this sea was just out of range from the town centre, so it wasn't the worst. However, by sending the caravels into the South Sea, he essentially conceded map control in the centre, and New England is all about these middle two ponds and the map control, and I think once Stanley had that advantage, he could have pushed his military advantage like he did, or reinforced with a 4 trading post stagecoach, given that he had the eco advantage, military advantage, and could have further boosted it there. So interesting deck from Stanley. I'm not agreeing with the no water shipments here from him. However, he did manage to play rather well to actually negate his early military deficit against Klestree to come back and take the game. And look at this, his second hunt, or the hunt which started closest to his TC, which wasn't his starting hunt, is still alive, but moved to the very bottom of the map, and the sheeps were nowhere to be seen. Have a quick look at the post gameplay graph. Village account, Stanley in the lead, and that's just all those extra manor houses he squeezed in, and the 5 settlers he managed to put in there while Klestree went for the military techs.
Yeah, actually both players are already out and waiting.
Yeah, that's usually the case with me.
Yes. But yeah, it's like usually most Brit mirrors, from what I know, usually goes down to Musketeer Brawl. And if in that case, I'm really not sure if going water is actually viable, because it can lose some cohesion if the player is not that careful with his military.
Yeah, certainly good observation there. I think in a land map as well, both players want to kind of push for that centre ground. It's not just for the kind of trying to get the military advantage over your opponent, but you're trying to fight for those precious resources in the middle of the map. So the map control element in this Brit mirror is absolutely fundamental and crucial to this matchup. And further questions why Klestree put the caravels into the South Sea, but this is the bigger division, and this is an opportunity for both players to gain experience. I'm sure Stanley's got plenty of experience, but also opportunities to learn and further improve, and maybe coming back. I think Klestree may be coming back at a later point. It may be in a year time into the next seasonal, and could be in a position to enter into the intermediate bracket. And so it's just players getting better as we go through. But for the time being, we still have these players in the beginners division evenly matched, high captain versus low major, and we're about to go into Bonnie Springs with Stanley Winston picking the Dutch civilization.
And Klestree is thinking, what should I play against Dutch?
Against Dutch, I think French have a decent matchup. I think the British also have a good matchup versus Dutch. I think Dutch actually struggles versus a lot of civilizations. Klestree could go aggressive with civs like Russia, or could go for an H2 Aero play. China's not too bad as well. There's plenty options. Dutch, for me, it feels like it doesn't really excel in any matchup, but does a reasonable in most. I don't think it has huge counter picks. However, when you have lots of units in your town centre, early H2 for Dutch, it's sometimes quite a struggle to defend, and Klestree is going for the Ottomans, and we may see some aggressive H2 play, or maybe a map
fast fortress from both players.
Well, fast fortress from Klestree as well.
Yeah. And maybe, I don't know, we'll see how both players play out.
Yeah, and how will Stanley Winston defend if Klestree walks into the Dutch's base with 18 vet Janissaries, 2 Falconets, and 4 Mamelukes?
And we are loading into Bonnie Springs.
I think the problem with Klestree as well is he has to process the recorded game as well, and I think the recorded game takes a while to process, especially if your computer's on the lower spec. So there's maybe a slight delay here, but gives us a good chance to check the map. Coin mines looking very mirrored. Both players having access to 2 nearby hunts. A slightly small herd for Stanley to the north of his base, but is mirrored in terms of the number of hunts and the quality of hunts available for both players. We have 3 hunts left side, 3 hunts right side, and 2 in the centre. So The map has spawns symmetrical, slightly lower resources available on the map than the players may have anticipated. However, the map balance
Yeah.
is equal, so I'm happy to play in this game. We'll have
Yes, it's good enough for like the resources itself.
We do see as well a coin crate start, so that will greatly benefit Stanley Winston in this early Age 1. Stanley being able to train an extra villager without having to mine, but essentially we'll have to mine less coin. And looking at nearby treasures, we do see a 20 coin for Stanley. He could push into the middle of the map with 50 wood by 2 coyotes left side. Right side we see the coyote pet, but I'm looking into the center of the map and look at all these coin treasures. I've got 4 coin treasures on my screen right now. 30 coin, 30 coin, 20 coin, and 55 coin there. So let's do the quick maths. About 135 coin ready to pick up in the center of the map for the Dutch player or the Ottomans. But the Dutch player could really benefit with all this extra coin in the middle of the map.
Yeah. And it's taking a while to load in.
I must admit, I understand that you're getting all hyped up. You're like, yes, let's go, load in this game, let's do it, and it just takes a while. But unfortunately,
Yeah, well, load in.
it is what it is. But 1.5 minutes to load in for a 9, 10, 15-minute game, it's still worth it. And we see Klestree going straight for the wood crates, killing the deer, and sending his explorer to the right-hand side to drop down an early trading post on his trading route. And we see Stanley making a beeline straight away for the middle of the map, and we'll come across a 55 coin treasure to start off with, and Stanley will be very happy that he's seen that straight away.
Yes. And it will help reduce his age up time to colonial, which is really great against something like Ottoman with the potential of Gen Rush.
So Stanley's actually, he's gone to the middle and picked up the 55 coin, but he's carried on to the opponent's half, and he's certainly quite far from his own base, and he's already scouted the 40 food in his base, 50 wood treasure by 2 coyotes, very easy to pick up, but is now picking up a 30 food instead.
To see about 30 food from Klestree.
Yeah, alligator nearby for 35 food as well. So I think Stanley is just making the most of, oh, hang on a minute, settler on the mid-map. Klestree's picked up straight away.
Yeah.
But surely he's seen where Stanley Winston's explorer is. He must have seen that Stanley picked up this treasure in the line of sight of Klestree's base, so Klestree should be aware of this. He's trying his best to kite it, but Stanley's just stood underneath his settler treasure with a crack shot, and I think once his crack shot goes down and realises that it's only one coyote in the map, he's just going to walk in, pick this coyote off, and then take the settler for himself. And this also provides a nice forward villager for any forward buildings like a barracks or maybe a proxy stable. I know that Stanley loves his proxy stables from team games. Oh, is he going to back her?
Stanley, do it.
Please don't back her this hunt, Stanley. It's be nice.
Klestree is certainly not so happy about the settler being stolen by Stanley.
Yeah, if Stanley backherded that, slightly annoying move for Klestree, but it is a tournament game though, so I don't expect Stanley to try and pull out all the tricks to win this. But where is this settler going? Is he just macroing it with his explorer? He's just pulled it halfway across the map, and it could have been gathering already. And in Age 1, it's not exactly much pressure from the Ottoman player, so looks like he's just trying to herd in some side hunts closer to his town centre, given that the starter hunts from both players are quite small.
Here we see both explorers fighting for their lives. And that aside, both players are aging up now, with the Ottomans aging up with 400 wood, and actually both players are aging up with 400 wood.
Yeah, we see the 400 age up from both players. Ottomans would like to use that 400 wood for stagecoach control, get another TP stagecoach, or maybe dropping down military buildings of 2 barracks, artillery, foundry. And so by seeing Klestree going for the 400 wood age up, I think we can see that Klestree is wanting to make some units in age 2 and try and play this colonial age, or at least try and get some sort of map control in the second age. Otherwise he could have aged up with the governor politician for the tower and 200 coin. Looks like he's moving straight to the right side to get this second trading post down for himself, and the 400 wood behind this should be able to get Klestree the stagecoach upgrade as well as a barracks, and try and train some janissaries before the 700 wood comes in.
It's important to talk about Klestree's deck. It's quite interesting.
Oh, we do see 6 Spahis into the 4th age. No Hussars 4th or 3rd, so I don't believe we'll see a revolt. Fort wagon in the 3rd age, quite useful. 5 janissaries in the 2nd age, but no 3 Hussars. And with a full stack of 600 of both food crates, both wood crates and both coin crates, as well as the 4 settlers, there's no room for shipments like the 3 Hussars and maybe Silk Road or ATP, but because Klestree got that early TP in, he could have gone for the Silk Road, which would benefit his rest of his crate shipments into the 2nd age. So we'll see what Klestree wants to do with his extra XP he's basically received from the trading post, and he's gone for a mid-map barracks. Single barracks at the time being. He has sent 700 wood behind this, so he may have enough resources to drop down a second military production building. That could be the stable or the artillery foundry or a second barracks. So we'll see what Klestree has in mind as we move into the early colonial.
We now see 5 janissaries coming out from Klestree. Idling a bit, but I assume he's waiting for his next shipment.
Yeah, it looks like Stanley, he went for the barracks, house and market with the wood on age up, but now having sent 700 wood behind this, has used that wood to get a second bank as well as getting another house down, or maybe he used that age up wood actually to get the bank going. But at the moment he's got the market down, he's got enough population to start training some skirms. He hasn't started production yet, and Stanley has now just scouted this forward building from Klestree, but I believe he's only scouted the barracks and the janissaries and be unaware that a stable is nearby from Klestree. So if Klestree walked into Stanley's base with an army of janissaries as well as a few hussars, these skirmishers may get picked off very quickly from Stanley Winston's hussar mass.
But did Klestree know that Stanley started off with a Rex?
Yes, I did see that the Ottoman explorer was walking through Klestree's base and did see the barracks, and I believe that is why he dropped down the stable behind this, and why he's waiting for a batch of 5 hussars. Envoy has come out and scouted the hussars. Hussars are trying to chase this envoy down. Not too sure it's the best use of the hussars' time, and I think now that you've got a mass of quite a number of janissaries as well as the 5 hussars, 12 janissaries, 5 hussars, we can see that Klestree is essentially right-clicking on Stanley's base, and he's going to march across the map as fast as possible. I'm not too sure what else Klestree is training. I'm sure he'd be training another batch of hussars, 1 janissary, 1 hussar in queue, now bumped up to 3, and I think Stanley may need the 8 pikes shipments, or at least Minutemen's, to try and defend this push from all these hussars into Stanley's base.
Minutemen might be enough, but
8 pikes coming out on top of the hussars from Klestree. Klestree, well done for pulling that back straight away. Janissary is trying to target down the pikemen. Hussars move into the left side on the skirmishers.
Minutemen being called.
Minutemen on the janissaries, and hussars now on the pikemen. Skirmishers on the janissaries. A reinforcing batch of hussars will swing it back into Klestree's way, but good positioning from Stanley so far in this base defense.
But the Minutemen are slowly melting, and there are only skirmishers left on the field right now.
Yeah, and Klestree has...
This is Klestree's moment. He needs to do some damage before Stanley ages up.
Well, Stanley is nowhere near from aging. He's got 6 pikes in queue, and these 8 hussars, most of them have high HP. It's not like he's only got a few units remaining, so I think Klestree is just going to retreat for now. He does have another batch of Janissaries moving in, and these Janissaries will provide enough fire to take on his pikes, but these hussars are still on the map. I'm not too sure Stanley is able to safely age behind this, and may have to try and change his playstyle drastically if he wants to survive the Ottomans' early military spike, and has now got 10 pikes out in the field. But how is the pikeman going to do the Janissaries, given that the Minutemen have already been used from the town centre?
It's certainly going to be a bit of a problem to deal with Janissaries if he can only train pikemen or skirmishers from one barracks. Maybe he can go skirm huss if he builds a stable.
Well, Stanley's
No, he's going for 2 racks.
He's frantically building it with 4 villagers. He knows that he can't afford time to age up and will need to increase his skirmisher and pike production to try and fend off this Ottoman army. And given that he has 4 banks on the floor, I think Stanley knows he has the superior eco and just needs to play long game. But look at this this hussar mass pushing in from Klestree, and although there are 10 pikes on the field, there are 12 hussars with a reinforcing batches of Janissaries to help them, and this surely should be enough military from Klestree to take out Stanley's army. And Stanley's trying to position at the far back of his base for basically to try and get away from the hussars as long as possible and cause any pathing issues from through the house and the bank. And we see that the hussars are struggling to move in, and the pikes are still standing there.
Great position for Stanley. He's trying his best to fight this out with such a huge military disadvantage.
Janissaries working their way into the pikemen, and all the pikes on the left hand side being taken out. A reinforcing batch of skirmishers, but with only 8 more pikes on the field and 8 hussars still in Klestree's base. These pikes will have to be pivotal to try and defend this. Another reinforcing batch of Janissaries. The pikes are still standing, 4 pikes remaining. Looks like Klestree is focusing down the pikes with his Janissaries, but with this TC fire underneath with colonial militia shipped behind this, I think Stanley Winston has just done enough to defend this large military push from Klestree, and it's enough to stabilize.
Stanley actually cleaned up and survived the push, and it was more or less because of the positioning behind the houses, the bank, and 2 racks.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about this map is that you have a very limited amount of space behind, and Stanley couldn't move anymore. He was tucked up in his buildings, and so although he couldn't retreat any further or kite, the hussars couldn't really swing behind the barracks and get on top of the units. So the hussars had a horrible time trying to path onto the units there, and that is why Stanley appears to defend that really well. And now with a much stronger economic population on the field compared to the Ottoman player, I think Stanley should be able to send either a food or a coin crate and be able to get an age up in behind if he wanted to, or just continue massing from the 2 barracks.
He just sent 700 food crates, so I will assume that he wants to maybe age up from behind and train units at the same time, possibly.
I think Stanley's, just by judging what he's got his resources, his villagers doing in base, I think Stanley wants to take this to age 2. He does have both barracks currently training 5 pike, 5 skirmishers. He's pushing out with his army. He knows he's got the army advantage for the time being because he cleaned up Klestree in his base. And with the eco behind this, I think Stanley just needs to reinforce his mass, and he should be fine to take this game moving out. But again, Klestree has reinforced lots of Janissaries and hussars moving in from behind to cut off Stanley Winston from any reinforcements, and does have 2 hussars, 3 Janissaries topside. Hussars moving in left side, and a lot of pikes will be picked off by his Janissaries here.
He needs to be careful not to lose his pikes.
Hussars moving to the skirm mass on the top. Janissaries engaged in the pikes. Good positioning from Klestree here.
Yeah.
But looks like the pikes are chasing down the hussars, and the Hussars are falling down really quickly, and once the Hussars are gone, it's just going to be skirmishers versus Janissaries. And looking at the military population, it looks like Stanley is actually cleaning this up underneath Klestree's own military buildings. And with the military advantage and the eco advantage, I think Stanley is firmly in the driving seat for this game, and has reinforced with another 5 batch of skirmishers. Only a couple pikes though, so we've got 3 Hussars in queue, and now that barracks has gone down, should be able to get a full 5 batch of Hussars out.
Yeah, I think that batch of Janissaries was about to come out, but then the racks got sieged down, so it was a bit unfortunate for Klestree to miss that batch.
Yeah, 5 Hussars are about to pop out, and there are no pike reinforcements, and there you go. 5 Hussars on top of this army, and he's already focusing down the pikemen really well, so only a couple pikes still alive, only 1 more to go, and then it's a pure skirm army with 2 Hussars at full HP, 1 other Hussar is still standing. I'm not too sure if it's enough to take on his skirms though, but certainly a good trade there for, well, the best that he could have hoped for, but with a reinforcing batch of 10 pikemen, I think Klestree will see that these 10 pikes and other skirmishers here, training any more Hussars will probably be futile from this stable. He may elect to build extra buildings back at home.
He's building an artillery foundry, so I think and with 4 villages, so he's doing it very, with an urgent sense, and I guess we will be expecting some Abus guns coming out soon.
To Klestree's credit, he does have 31 settlers out on the field for the Ottoman player, with steel traps as well, so he has an alright eco behind this.
And also 2 TP eco, don't forget that. Yeah, it's 8 villages.
Yeah, 2 trading posts to help out his eco. Not enough to compare with Dutch players' 4 banks, but having to be forced back from the hunts from the mid-map due to the Dutch players' superior military control, and that Klestree has already sent both his 700 coin and 600 coin. I think Klestree will struggle out to get continuous batches of 5 Abus, but with only 1 building still standing, 5 Abus, it may not be enough to take on this mass from Stanley.
Yeah, there are 34 military units on the field for Stanley, and
wow,
it looks like Stanley is about to age up as well.
Well, Klestree...
Yeah, he just clicked
Yeah, Klestree cancelled those Abus guns, because I think he knew they'll just get picked off as soon as they pop out, so he's just cancelled the Abus guns, and he's going for a last stand, age up to the Fortress Age, where he can hopefully try and pull something back with Mamelukes or Spahis or Falconets, or maybe try and ship a fort and hope for the best, but there's no more food in the near base of Klestree, and all his resources out in the middle of the map, and that's where Stanley's army is, and you can see Klestree's only got 4 vills on food, and they're on the right hand side, and that's actually closer to Stanley's base than it is to Klestree, and I think this vill from Klestree is being scouted from Stanley, and when you see 1 vill, there's a good chance there's going to be another couple nearby.
Yeah, so he was being forced away now from his hunts, and that's usually not a good thing, especially when there are not many hunts on the map left.
Yeah, if we take off the fog of war, we can see that all the hunts are currently in the middle portion of the map and the far left side and right side. But it looks like Stanley's done a good job of trying to herd the 2 left hunts slightly towards his side of the map and to his town centre. Big raid right side, pikes onto the stagecoach, but with the skirmishers nearby having seen all of these settlers, no great coats in for Klestree. Klestree has to run away with all these units, and I've just realised Klestree's been aging up with the slow politician, the marksman, and so should be aging up with 4 or 5 Abus guns into the Fortress Age. He now has 1,000 coin on the in his deck as well, shall I say, so he's always gone for Minutemen and Abus, so trying to push out while he's got some units out in the field, because he just needs to give anything to try and be able to hunt, because currently he can't hunt with no map control. Could have waited for the Mamelukes. He does have the Mamelukes in deck, but the Minutemen clean him straight away. Abe was frantically retreating. Not too
He
sure.
just shipped his Mamluk shipment, so his Minuteman could have waited a bit.
Yeah,
It's not like Stanley was pushing all in.
Stanley even managing to squeeze in a team infantry hit point, so pikemen and the skirmishers have a plus 15% HP onto them already. Veteran hussars coming in, 5 hussars on the field, veteran tech, and I don't know if Stanley knows where these villagers are, but he's sniffing out of it. Klestree's villas aren't in his base, and he's come across a couple of villas on his coin mine, and yeah, Klestree knew
And
that he
Klestree
couldn't
was
carry
on.
on. Really close to Klestree there, especially in Stanley Winston's base, and the pathing was pretty bad, but also, yeah, pro position from Stanley, but up against a cliff. You can't run anywhere, but you also can't position behind the cliff, so Stanley
Yeah.
making the most out of his map features and playing to his advantage.
And if we look at the economic population, it's just that if Klestree failed to push in early game, it's pretty much that he will get an economic disadvantage for the entire game.
Yeah, certainly. Early engagements, Klestree had about 30 military population against Stanley's 20, and that was when the pikeman shipment came in and the Minutemen. Did rather well in that fight, 16 down to 2 military population, and then came back for this second, more powerful push with lots of hussars and lots of janissaries. About 12 hussars, 12 janissaries, but excellent position from Stanley Winston behind his 2 barracks, house, and bank. And you just see how the Ottomans' population just kind of falls away from 37 down to about 4 or 5. And Stanley Winston, trained his pikemen off really well, skirmishers surviving, and managing to survive with just 20 military population defending, a few reinforcements, but ended up with 13. And with similar militaries afterwards and a stronger eco, Stanley was able to reinforce much faster than the Ottoman player, and then once he had the map control, basically tried to force Klestree's villagers all around, and Klestree, he just couldn't train any villagers, tried to get the third age in to try and do something different to what he was previously doing, but Stanley closed the game out there with that mid-map control with his units.
Yeah, it's just like last game, it's all about that center map control again.
Yeah, so also villager population. You can see that how Klestree went for a few of the mosque techs. Villager increase was actually quite consistent, and then did send the 4 settlers in later in Age 2. A shipment you don't usually see in many Ottoman players' decks, and I think Klestree could have also. He was going for the real aggressive play into Stanley Winston's base, but there was opportunities for Klestree to also take Stanley's trading route. But however, researching Stagecoach twice is certainly less than desirable, so maybe Klestree was happy with his 2 TPs on the right side, and I guess tried to reinforce the best he could, send in 700 coin, 600 coin, 700 foot, 600 foot to try and mass enough army of Janissaries and Hussars, but Stanley's positioning won that game for him there. So let's hop out into that one and go into the next game between Stanley Winston and Klestree.
Yes. Is this a best of 5?
Yeah, best of 5.
Best of 7? Yes. So this will be the match point for Stanley.
Yeah, Stanley to pick first as well. So another good training post map, and I thought Klestree's Ottoman play last game was actually good. This could be a good map to counter pick with the Ottomans as well. So it depends on what Stanley wants to pick as his first civ. Klestree does then have full civ choice at his disposal. I did see in the last series I casted a Stanley Winston. I think it was another Dutch versus Ottomans, and this is either Dutch versus Ottomans or I can't remember what the other civ the opponent was using, but Stanley managed to defend in Age 2 and then basically push out into Age 3, send infantry combat, mass a few skirms, but then powered up straight to the Industrial Age and research guard skirmishers, as well as send in the Age 2 skirmisher upgrades as well. And basically Stanley had super skirmishers on Bonnie Springs, and his opponent just couldn't really come back to that huge mass that Stanley had in skirms. So Stanley well rehearsed with the Dutch on Bonnie Springs, and maybe that was part of his game plan, was to actually purposely sit back and play defensive and then push out once he had the advantage of the eco behind it.
Yeah. Checking now. It seems that Stanley was a bit confused about how, like, whether he picks first or second.
Yeah, I think he's now realised, and he's gone for the Aztec. And I was about to say to Stanley, maybe it's time to bring out the Germany, but it looks like Stanley's going to go for Aztec. And I wonder what Klestree will pick against this. I've struggled playing this matchup as the Germans. I know it is not too bad if you get that early build order from Germany correct, of going for maybe crossbows, 700 wood, 8 expo shipments, a bit of town defending. Aztecs are certainly more of the aggressive civ, and any civ which can deal with early pressure will be a decent pick, and maybe Klestree could stay the Ottomans. I'm sure the Mace Sultans will do quite well versus the Ottomans here. Klestree could go Iro. He does do Dutch quite well, but Dutch against Aztec, that might be a bit too much of a power spike for Stanley here. So, Klestree did do relatively well with the British in the first game, so that is another option for Klestree, and especially if you get Musketeer attack upgrade and the Hussar HP, you have some real strong units to deal with what the Aztec player has.
Well, he could also try out Russia if he wants. Like, Russia can technically handle any kind of early pressure, and then there are two very cost-effective units, Strats and Cossacks, that can both be carded with boyars and several other upgrades from the home city.
Ooh, we see a China pick out from Klestree, and I'm hoping that Klestree has Box of Rebellion in his deck, as well as a few other unit shipments, because I think we may see some sort of extended colonial play from the China player if he needs to defend really hard, or just try and go for that naked FF and just hope to survive until the Fortress Age. Stanley Winston, he can go aggressive, but he can also play for the map control in early Age 2. So I think it's up to Stanley how he wants to play the game, but it's up to Klestree how to react.
For certain, Klestree can go for something like flamethrowers and a bunch of crossbowmen and pikemen. But certainly Age 3 Fortress Age would be the best for China, or even both players can opt for Fast Industrial.
If we see Fast Industrials on both players, that would be an amazing sight and a very interesting game. I'm unsure if that'd be the best way for the Aztec player to play this game, because we do know if you leave China untouched for long, they become this all-powerful, mighty monster civ, and are relatively exposed in the early Second Age due to any pressure. And China themselves don't have the strongest of Age 2, and that's where the Aztec player, that's where they kind of excel. They have all this XP shipments from the Warrior Priests and Fire Pits. They have the potential to go for the TP control. Stanley might even have the 3 Trading Post card in his deck as well, because we're unlikely to see Klestree affording to drop down more than 1 Trading Post himself.
Let's check the hunts and mines quickly.
Yeah, I think it's alright. 4 nearish for both players, or 2 very near for both players, and then 2 slightly farther out, and then the other hunts are kind of 2 on each side. Coins are symmetrical. I'm happy with this.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Yeah. And it looks like it's a food start. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It is. It's just the 300 food and the 200 wood from Klestree, and in previous patches and in the official RE patch, China always spawns with 300 food and 300 wood. So Klestree just seeing he's only got the 200 wood. I think we'll just see, what China has to do now would be gather up the crates, build one village straight away, and do not chop any extra wood, because you just cannot afford to delay your age up that long to get an early trading post or a second village. And it looks like that's what he's doing. He's got one vill to the top to herd his bison in. And certainly the bisons...
Oh, he's chopping wood.
Yeah, bisons can't move within the first 12 seconds anyway, but it looks like he's waited for that to happen to herd it in closer. Get some good... Oh, I don't like this from Klestree. Like, it's...
Yeah.
He's only got 200 wood, and he needs to chop 190 wood to drop down that village, and he's already moving out with his explorer onto the TPs, and maybe this is just his automatic reactions. He's also stopping off for this 80 food treasure, so I guess that will allow him some leeway into chopping the wood required for the village as well, and hopefully will keep his age up time at a fairly respectable time. A very quick pickup there for the Chinese monk, and should be able to drop a TP on either of these two trading posts here and still get the first XP pass. But I don't know where he's going now. He's retreating, so maybe Klestree is wanting to go for like 2 villages. He's dropped down his.
He's waiting for this, but that's another 75 food.
Yeah. So oh no! Oh my god! That's such an incorrect mistake. Oh, he's dropped down the monastery instead of a village.
Oh, he might have misclicked.
Oh, that is not what you want to see.
I don't know if...
I mean...
I don't know if we are allowed to call for any kind of, yeah, only if Sandy allows. That's really unfortunate.
I'm also not too sure if I should have told Stanley what happened, actually, because that's Stanley can kind of rub his hands and go, "Oh, lovely! This is going to be an easy right click for me." But I know that Stanley's a good lad, and I think he's offering the re, and I really hope a re happens, because that's a pure mistake from Klestree.
Yes, I think it might have been bad fingers.
Oh, I'm crying. I'm crying. It's
well, we are going to see a rematch, so we are going to wait for Let's go out and
GG.
quickly
Well played.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was a quick game.
To be fair, he has a monastery hotkey. That's impressive in its own right. I have your house or villages, market, bank sometimes, consulate, barracks and stable, but I don't really have any other buildings hotkey. And I'm waiting until the Twitch catch up to that game. Maybe looks like Zek's going, maybe it's a 2 village start, and everyone's thinking, oh, what's going to happen? But once they see the monastery, they're just going to lose it at that point.
Anything can happen.
Get the monastery hype in the chat from Mr. Bramboy.
The chat is catching up with us now.
I mean, okay. Right, looks like both players are ready to spawn into this game number 3 for a second time after a very courteous rehost given from Stanley due to an unfortunate error with hotkeys early in the game. Essentially, I think we've both caught it, and I think other people in the chat have realised as well that the game was over at that point if the game carried on, because how does China chop the wood needed for a village? He was housed at that point. He couldn't produce any other villages, and basically we had to kind of maybe commit to a 10 age up to the second age, and it certainly wouldn't benefit him. We do see 2 nearby hunts for both players, and other hunts are certainly out on the map, slightly closer for Stanley, but at this point in the game, I think it would be down to random variants of where they walk. You could certainly argue this deer hunt to the south right of Stanley is slightly closer, but could walk in a different direction to the one near the cliff for Klestree, or the one in the forest to the north left.
Yeah, it's fair enough, I think. Stanley complaining about his free bills treasure from last game, which he would have got.
To be fair, I think if Stanley played on, that would be the biggest. That would be the game of the year. I think with Klestree's amazing start, it'd be very tough for Stanley to come back into that game there. So
yeah,
I think I think we were denied an exhilarating game, and so have to go for another and had to rehost that one. So that's unfortunate, but
that's really unfortunate that we could have looked forward to some mercenary play from Klestree.
To be fair though, because this is the beginner division, I think we have that flexibility to do that. If that was in the pro game between Kaiser, Klein, and Lucas, I'm sure Kaiser would be like, "Hello, I'm gonna milk this one." Well, okay, not Kaiser in particular as him as a person, but when a lot of money is on the line, I think offering rehosts is certainly not probably the best thing to do. But Stanley's a nice guy. This is kind of the friendly series in the beginner division. I believe there is no prize money for the beginner division. However, the winner of the entire division will get a cheeky coaching session from one of the top players currently in the scene. So we'll have to find out who that coaching session is going to be given by. And maybe that's what Stanley is eyeing himself up for, is to be taught by the best.
Maybe Ryan will come back?
We can hope, but I'm not too sure. Well, anything can happen, really. I did joke that now that he has tied the knot, his long-term partner, his now wife, would be more forgiving of him to play AoE late into the night instead of spending time with her instead. But I'm not too sure H2O will be around. He's around, but I don't think he'll be around to play the game. But that's pure speculation. Currently, right now, we are currently into the third game, and what has Stanley seen? He's seen himself. He's already picked himself up a medicine man, and for 2 cougars it's only guarded by. It's a really easy pickup now to take it, and it is really undervalued by most players at the moment. Certainly there are other better treasures to take as a first treasure, but Stanley can just go to town on these treasures. No micro required. Just take them as fast as possible, because he knows you can get healed up by the medicine man afterwards, and no risk of Stanley losing his explorer into age 1, and that's what the benefit of the medicine man provides.
And here we see Stanley picking up 70 food, Klestree picking up 50 wood, and now he's building a trading post here, which is not a bad start, I would say.
So it looks like from me that Klestree went for the village first to ensure continuous villager production, because sometimes you do get a little bit idled from your town centre if your micro is not perfect, or you haven't got fortunate with all of the trading. Well, fortunate with with any treasures to help you out with that chopping, but because he delayed that TP slightly, he did miss that first pass before.
Yeah. And now he's going to pick up 75 food. And Stanley just missed that slightly.
Yeah, I don't actually think the Aztec Explorer can take on the Chinese Monk. I think the Chinese Monk will win that fight, but he also does have a negative multiplier versus heroes. I think both Explorers will do 6 damage to each other. In that case, the Aztec Explorer will slightly win. China can train Disciples as an emergency, but yeah, both players are going to walk past, and any fight doesn't really matter for Stanley, because we can see he's going to get healed up by the Medicine Man, and his Explorer is still at full HP, and he's picked up quite a few treasures already, should we say Stanley has. Stanley picking up the...
And he's just picked up 65 wood.
65 wood, as well as 70 food, and the Medicine Man, so, you know, having all his treasures picked up, and yeah, back up to full health straight away. And that Medicine Man in Age 1, and in all ages, to be fair, does heal at 10 HP per second, and so... You only have to rest your Explorer very briefly until it's back up to full HP, and yeah, it's very useful to have. And now, because he's at full HP, he got the full HP bonus onto age up onto the second age, so 750 HP already. That's a very strong unit this part of the game.
Stanley is already up in the next stage, and it will be interesting to see which option he goes for.
So he's going for the forward war hut as per standard, but we will have to see what his first shipment will be into the second age, whether he's going to go really aggressive with a military shipment, or will he send 700 wood first, or maybe 3 warrior priests to kind of get that eco going at the same time. Currently chopping quite a lot of wood on the side. We'll have to see what Stanley does have in mind, and yeah, he has now got the 700 wood down, and in total that should give him 800 wood, and that could be enough wood to capture the entire trade route and stagecoach, or just at least get some sort of military production going from the war hut.
I don't think he will go for the trading post, given that he got 3 trading post triple on his deck, and he has got a lot of military shipments as well.
That's a really good spot there, and Klestree will be unlikely to build a second trading post. And so yeah, it looks like he may want to go for the 3 TP Travoirs, but if he wants to go for 3 TP Travoirs, he could have gone that, could have sent that as card number 1, and send the 700 wood behind it with the increased XP, and maybe drop down the second war hut with the 700 wood. But we have to see what's going on. He's Stanley with a 2 warrior raid coming from the home town centre. Must have accidentally left the war priest on the warrior dance instead of XP or war priest dance.
He's not going to. Is this XP dance or war priest dance? I'm not too sure.
Oh, this is also very nice actually. Sends in the 3 trading post Travois from the forward war hut, and that reduces the amount of time these Travois have to walk across the map. I think it might not matter too much due to where this trade Travois is, but this far right Travois may actually get the TP down and built before the Travois comes back again for another pass. Klestree will now see these warriors from Stanley taking down his trading post, and this confusion tactic from Stanley should be enough to confuse Klestree into hitting the resign button straight away.
But Klestree is actually training military units. He's staying H2. But what Stanley is doing, he's doing the completely opposite. He's not going to train any units for now and just focus on his eco.
Yeah,
and now he's going to train coyotes, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what Stanley has scouted from Klestree's base, and to be honest, even I didn't scout Klestree's base, and I've got full map vision. I was assuming Klestree would be going straight for a standard fast fortress from the Chinese player, but shipping 700 wood first, and then training old hand batches while sending H2 canoes. I think Klestree is gearing up for some sort of base defense, or maybe now that he's seen that Stanley has 3 trading posts, he actually may want to push out and try and also take some sort of control, because now that he's lost his own trading post, Stanley has access to the entire route for himself.
Yeah, Stanley is actually grabbing the trading post that he just destroyed from Klestree, and he's going to steal it.
Here we go.
Get the stagecoach, and yeah.
Big army moving out from Klestree, and I think Stanley hasn't scouted this, and he'd be surprised to see how many pikes and Chukano are here. And with only 5 coyotes out in the field, even the Chukano by themselves can deal with this, but pikemen from the China player moving on to the Pumas and the coyotes of the Aztec player, and the Aztec player has to retreat. The Chukanos can now take on the rest of the fight, and the pikemen will just take down the war huts and the stagecoach.
It's a huge mass coming from the Chinese player with 38 against 15 military population.
And these Mace Sultans are going back for some more action, but I'm not too sure they're going to win this fight. 6 Coyote runners shipped to the forward war hut.
You need to be careful with the units.
Does he have anything in queue? He does have 6 units in queue from the war hut as well. That could pop out very soon. Yes, Coyotes pop out as well. Is he going to call for the Aztec Jaguar Prowler Knight? Big button as well. He has the resources available. However, he's already committing his Coyotes and Mace Sultans into the fight already. This may be too little too late for Stanley to try and defend this position, but has certainly taken down a lot of units as it is. There we go. Jaguar Prowler Knight spawned from the war hut, now engaging with the pikemen, doing good damage versus it, but picked off very quickly by the Chukanos. Another batch of 5 Coyotes and a Mace Sultan shipment should be enough to defend this position for Stanley. And Klestree, 7 Steppies and another Old Ham. This is anybody's fight at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a very close fight, but I think Stanley might still lose his units here. There are just too many stuff for Stanley to actually hold ground.
Yeah, it may be too much for Stanley to hold, but he's also buying time essentially for himself. Now that he's got the 4 TPs working for him, and it will take a while for these units to actually take down both the trading post and the war hut. You need to take the war hut first before taking down the trading post, so you're not getting shot at in the back by these arrows. But what is Aztec doing? Stanley's dropping a war hut in base. He sent himself Puma Spearman shipments. He has a lot of eco behind this as well, so he's not in a bad position, and the game's not over by any means. We do see Klestree still in the second stage, and China really wants to try and transition to getting an age up at some point. I don't think he can stay the second age for too long. And yes, the 700 coin has just been sent from Klestree behind this, so Klestree's done the damage. He's forced Stanley to react to his military push. He's getting a stage train post of himself with a 21 HP Explorer, so luckily that Klestree had that unit still alive to build it, and actually is able to take down the second one.
In front of the Aztec war chief is like adding insult to injury.
God, where's that medicine man where you need him? I think that medicine man went down in the fight, so unfortunately, no more medicine man. And if that's Aztec was revived by the medicine man, it'd be quicker to heal with the medicine man than probably is with the fire pit. So medicine man has its uses later in the game, so maybe it's something to just leave back in base at any point. China player picking up his second trading post, as well as now having enough resources to get to the third age. And maybe Stanley was thinking, maybe I should just ask to get that previous game decided as an admin win. But
yeah,
he's trying to defend that with Puma Spearman, a couple of Coyotes nearby. But now that the China has all this time to kind of play with, I think Stanley may have also caught on the fact that Klestree may be following us up with an Age 3. And I'm not too sure actually what Stanley can do at this point if he's losing his mid-map trading posts as well.
Klestree is going to click up. I think this is the Confucian Academy, I guess.
It is indeed, and the Confucian Academy gives you skirmishes on age up, as well as the ability to slowly produce flying crows over time. It looks like Klestree wanted, well, maybe not wanted, but initially put down the porcelain tower, but decided to cancel it before building it and invest those resources into the Confucian Academy instead. And at this point, I think Klestree's thinking if he can actually get to the third age and defend, he should be in a good position moving forward. He actually could have got away with the porcelain tower as well. He's probably unaware of Stanley's situation, but playing it safe with the Confucian Academy. I mean, Stanley is currently on match points, so Klestree doesn't want to lose to a right click from Stanley as soon as Klestree ages up to the third age. But he's doing well. He's trying to wall in Stanley's Aztec hero. Maybe a little bit too cheeky there. I think he cancelled the idea. Now we do see Stanley pushed out with some units, trying to regain control of the training post. He did tear down Klestree's second training post and is now working on Klestree's first training post. And now that you've seen the Fortress Age from Klestree, what is he going to do?
Maybe train more units and push. I honestly don't know what to do as at this point. For Fortress Age, China usually has the advantage.
So units in queue. Looks like Klestree is going for the Cav batch. Looking at his villages, he currently has no market down and no market techs. Something he could invest in at a later point, but not having the Confucian Academy, not having the Porcelain Tower, his wood income is slightly, well, very slow in comparison, so may not be able to afford a market at any point, and just needs, and is probably just getting the wood income just to try and keep building villages, but shipping the intervention from the British consulate, training the Cav batch as well. Klestree with a high HP monk, possibly walking in cover mode at the moment, or maybe just trying to join up with the other army at the north. Yeah, no, he wasn't in cover mode, just slowly catching up. But a good control of splitting his units into heavy infantry and a ranged infantry here, with another 6 musketeers produced due to how long this game's gone on as it is. He's currently got the 9 redcoats from the intervention. There's another 6 being trained, so many units out on the field for Klestree, and I think Klestree now knows he's got the power spike, possibly gets another Cav batch in at some point and sends another Fortress Age shipment, and then you're good to go.
I mean, if I knew that, if I were Klestree and I knew that I'm going to be fine, I would have gone for either the Porcelain Tower or go for the German consulate and research the trickle before switching back to the Brit consulate.
Well, yeah, certainly. The Brit consulate at the moment are being reduced down to plus 5% HP, but we do see from Stanley Winston, he does have a lot of coyotes out in the field as well. 2 little groups of coyote runners about to join each other, and with the coyote combat as well, I think Klestree's use of heavy infantry being sent from the British consulate is certainly a wise and safe decision, and 2 batches of coyotes being trained as well from the Aztec player. And looking at total military units, we have 34 upgraded coyotes from the Aztec player. But Stanley is playing in base. He's kind of given China all the time they need to kind of get on the map, take down his trend post to the Aztec player, but also have enough time to really mass units as well. And he's got 2 Cav batches trained. I wouldn't be surprised if he sends in the 5 Meteor Hammers behind us as well. There you go. 5 Meteor Hammers out on the ground, available for Klestree as well, and that will join up with his rest of his cavalry mass. And you know, he has the military number advantage in terms of population, but also quality as well. These are some strong units mixed in here. The Redcoats, the Meteor Hammers, a few Arquebusiers as well as that really high HP monk, currently sat at 720 HP. We got a subscription from Girth Quake. Thank you, Girth, for this subscription.
Yes, every single penny or donation will help ESOC organize better and larger tournaments in the future.
6 Pumas getting out of position slightly, getting some damage down on the cavalry units here, but getting picked off very quickly. And looks like the Coyotes are moving in with the Maces, because he knows if he doesn't act now, his war huts are going down. Coyotes all of the Coyotes going straight onto the heavy infantry, not really spreading the Coyotes out. Mace is trying their best to take on the Redcoats as well, but this heavy cavalry path into the south, about to get onto the Mace Alton mass, and I think the China players' superior unit quality is overpowering the Aztec player back at base.
And also, Stanley is being heavily outnumbered in military and the population. That quantity is like quality of it, another kind of quality, so to speak. And Stanley realizing that it's kind of unrealistic to hold on, he resigned.
I actually wasn't expecting Klestree to take a victory in this series. So currently it's 2-1 to Stan. 2-1 still to Stanley. Still props to Stanley for giving Klestree the opportunity to re-host due to a player error. So I mean, hats off the sportsmanship there. However, he may be a little bit disappointed that he could be marching to the finals, getting closer to the beginner finals, as well as that coaching session from a top player. But decided to extend the series, but maybe a little bit disappointed how that game panned out for him in the end.
If we look at the military unit population, actually both players are quite close for the entire game.
For once, I've actually just gone out the game without looking at the graphs. That's my mistake to any curious viewers.
And the last fight was actually more significant than I thought. It was 87 against 75 from Stanley. So it was a big fight and kind of equal because Stanley was on war dance and he got a few war priests dancing.
Yeah, so I think...
And maybe it's because of a mixture of tech and quantity that got Stanley lost the game.
Yeah, so I think the thing I kind of drew from that one was obviously the China was pushing in with a slightly higher military population, but also that higher quality of unit strength. Stanley had essentially a 2-unit composition of Mace Haltons and Coyotes, but Klestree had lots of anti-cav. He had the Changdaos from the territorial armies being produced. May not have too many Changdaos, but certainly had a few pikemen remaining from Second Age. He had 15 Redcoats as well. These are slightly stronger than veteran musketeers, but certainly strong units, and also quite a lot of heavy cavalry as well. So it would have been nice for Stanley to try and mix in a few extra Puma spearmen, but also that positioning from Stanley Whitson, he kind of put all his Coyotes onto one side and kind of splitting the Coyotes evenly between that north side of the war hut and the south side. Once some of the units from Stanley to the south kind of died, it just allowed Stanley's cav to kind of move in from behind onto the Mace Haltons. But I think it's just like the Coyotes, there were lots of them, but not all of them could attack at once, and so Stanley's Klestree's army also had quite a lot of range advantage, so quite a few Chucanoos, Redcoats still available, as well as the Meacher Hammers ranged with their kind of whip-based or their flail-type attack, could do lots more damage at that per second than the Aztec player. So that's probably why the Aztec army kind of fell over there, even though he was fighting underneath the town centre, 2 war huts as well, and Stanley did pop a few extra units during that fight, but I think it was just Klestree's stronger units there just kind of cleaned that up for himself and taken the game into a 4th game. It's currently 2-1 to Stanley, and Klestree, having picked Dutch in Florida, Stanley has replied with the Russian Civ.
Yeah, actually, don't forget that Klestree's cavalry was flanking Stanley's Mace Halton. So back there, it was that flanking force that melted the light infantry mass from Stanley.
But it's okay though, we're going to spawn into the fourth game between Klestree and Stanley Winston. Stanley Winston currently leading the series 2-1. Look at what do you think of this hunt situation for Stanley? Quite slightly less resources for him. However, he's playing Russia, so he will be looking for mid map. Klestree has 3 nearby hunts. Stanley does have 2 nearby hunts and a couple of hunts to the north, which he could herd in at a later point or push out. In the interest of time saving, I'm not too sure Stanley would like a rehost, and I don't think this is needing a rehost.
I think it's fine.
It's doable. Also,
Doable,
Stanley has a nice defensive coin mine. Klestree's coin mine is slightly to the side. It is in the back still, not as defensive as Stanley's mine. So both players having a bit of advantage and a bit of disadvantage. Klestree's coin mine is behind his town centre. Stanley's is slightly out to the side, but I'm expecting the action to be in Klestree's base in the early age 2. And it is a coin crate start as well for Stanley, so again benefiting the Dutch player in this matchup. But we do have a market for both players, and so Stanley may find a use of that coin crate with an early hunting dogs, or if he finds a couple of coin treasures nearby, can buy some wood or food with that coin. And for example, there's 90 coin behind Stanley's base, quite safe. 40 food, nothing too big. 135 coin, 2 Jaguars, 1 Outlaw Blowgunner. So, there's enough coin on the map to make use of the early market to buy resources, which could help with the early blockhouse building. Could even buy food if you want to get that age up in perfectly on the 14ville. There is certainly options for both.
Dogs.
Yeah, there's options for both players.
Yeah. And we are going to have to wait for Klestree to load in.
Looks like you got a fan in the chat. TRG AoE3 says, "Oh my god, Hulong casting, nice."
It's Silvery Beef. Hello, Beef.
Beef?
Yes.
What a name that is.
As Prince of Carthage on ESOC.
Did you say Friends of Cabbage?
No, Prince of Carthage.
Oh, Prince of Carthage. Oh, right, cool.
Yeah.
I'm about to say if we've got if we've got beef being friends with the cabbage, then I wonder where the carrot and the broccoli is.
My mic might be acting a bit strange, maybe.
No, that's okay though. We do see Stanley's Winston's Explorer move into the centre of the map straight away, and the first treasure he will see is an 80 wood treasure, and given that he's already got that coin crate back in base, if he picks up this 80 wood treasure, he could get a early hunting dogs without having to chop or mine anything. He could crack shots the pirate, melee down the Outlaw Blowgunner for an extra 80 wood, but he's found himself 100 XP as well, so maybe prioritising that early shipment in age 1, and the Russian player does send Distributism as their first shipment, so no population requirements for that. The sooner that sends, the more wood you get. Stanley's just gathered the rest of his coin mine, and Klestree's envoys are already in Stanley's base. That guy has certainly covered the distance already. He's certainly covered a lot of scouting information. Stanley successfully picking up that 100 XP. However, Klestree's Explorer is nearby and has converted one of the sheep that Stanley had originally picked up. But both players with Explorers nearby, it may be risky for either Explorer to try and start some of his treasures, i.e. like the 100 coin or the 80 wood.
Yeah. I think both players knew that each other, both of them are nearby.
I'm kind of confused where Stanley's Explorer is going, and he's actually on really low HP already. He kind of went for that fast 100 XP treasure without microing the Explorer too much, but Klestree's Explorer is currently on full hit health, 400, while the Russian player is only down to about 120 remaining, so there isn't... He can't take this 100 food treasure. I don't know what the calculation is, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see Stanley going down here, and with an envoy nearby, and
Oh
here we
no.
go, Klestree. All Klestree needs to do is take on Stanley Winston's Explorer. I think Stanley's in trouble here. 50 HP down, and the Outlaw Bloat Gunner is only about half HP. Envoy getting on top of that as well,
and
yeah, it's just gone. Luckily for Stanley, the Outlaw Bloat Gunner gets the XP, but even still though, 100 food being picked up for the Dutch player, Klestree will be happy with that.
That's huge for the age of time. Certainly Stanley could have used it and maybe age up a bit early for an earlier rush. But now Klestree is clicking up with that bonus 100 food, and he's going to advance to the colonial age first.
We can see Stanley reacting back in base due to that missed treasure. He just deleted his 2 sheep and gathered them up already just to try and get that age up in at a good time. And now moving out with 3 settlers to the mid-map, starting to hunt his second hunt, and his other hunt has walked to the back of the base, but if you know if you got a hunt in the back, it was in the market's line of sight previously, so he should know where his next hunt after the one he's herding now is. I think Stanley won't be too mind. Stanley did suggest that he wants to get this game on straight away and try and get through the series as fast as possible, so Stanley may want to be playing aggressive given his own personal situation. And here we go, Blockhouse being dropped mid-map in between 2 coin mines, just about in 1 monitor range between the town centre of the Dutch player and his own blockhouse, and aging up with the 14 vil at normal time. We should see Stanley at a decent time able to send shipments like the 5 Cossack, 13 Strelets, and other crates to fund military production.
Actually, Klestree has sent the second H1 shipment. I'm not sure what he sent.
Well, he's just sent 3 vils, and the only other thing you can realistically send in this situation is the Colonial Militia. The only concerning thing about sending Colonial Militia this early is that, well, you don't have a XP required for another Age 2 shipment, and you kind of need to rely on building the banks to give you the XP required to keep that shipment progression going. But an early Colonial Militia from Klestree, even before any pressure from Stanley in the base has happened, this is just that kind of anticipation that the Dutch player expects from the Russian Civ. I think the way Russia player does want to play this is to be on the aggressive, and we do see 29 out of 35. I believe we have a 10 Strel being popped, as well as 3 villagers in queue. No 5 Cossacks first card, I don't think, in terms of the population. Think about how the population works. Actually, maybe 5 Cossack. I'm not too sure he's actually training any vils behind this. Yeah. He's got no vils in queue. Stanley Winston's just going pure Strelets Cossacks and is not training any villagers behind this, and is still on 14.
He's training Strelets.
He's training Strelets, but no vils though.
Yeah. And he's going to do some minor damage to Dutch base, but those being light infantry and light cavalry units, well, hand cavalry units, they cannot really do much siege damage to the buildings.
But Klestree has 3 Hussars out underneath a Colonial Militia town centre. As long as he picks off some of these Cossacks, these Strats just go down to 1 shot from the TC fire, and Klestree probably has more eco gathering for him in the background compared to the Russian players' 14 vil all-in play. Like, Stanley is in all-in. Like, there's no shadow of a doubt. He's trained 2 batches of Strelets, sent 5 Cossack, 4 Cossack, and has not even trained a single vil batch in the second age. So, did send Distributism as his first card, so it wasn't as all-in as going, say, 300 wood, and then agent with the 500 food politician instead. But he's trying his best to kind of send the 700 wood behind this. Klestree is microing down. He's marking down the Cossacks, and essentially I think he needs to try and get a bit of food just to call that single batch of Minutemen, because at the moment he's got no resources for minutes.
He actually got no resources to train anything right now. He doesn't have the food. He's going to buy some food, but I think it's too late to train a batch of Huss from the stable.
Well, he has 2 villagers in queue, so he can take off 1 vil and train and call out a batch of Minutemen, and with the town centre taking one shots onto the Strelets and Musketeers, I think the Minutemen can even clean up, maybe snare the Strelets so they can't get away. And
But look at the stable HP, it's a bit too late now. Unless Stanley splits, like what he's doing now. Maybe, yeah, just in time.
Calm down, Stanley Winston training a batch of 5 Musketeers and shipping 13 Strelets as well. 3 Hussars get sent out from Klestree, and he does have resources available to call the first tier Minutemen if he chooses to as well. Possibly trying to save up for the 400 if he sells some wood and buys a batch of food, but he's trying his best not to sell some wood if he doesn't have to. But actually behind this, Klestree is microing down Stanley's Musketeers, and these Strelets are just tickling these Hussars. The Hussars, all 3 Hussars still alive, and then soon it's just going to be 10 vills in the town centre, one shot in these Strelets. Not even enough to kind of really scare some of these villagers. These sheeps are going down as well, and Klestree has resources for the second tier colonial militia if he needs to. Maybe not needed right now, because all of Stanley's army is dead.
But while Stanley is under Klestree's TC, he has been idling Klestree's villas for quite a while.
That is absolutely
by not doing anything.
Yeah, that is absolutely true, but all of Stanley's basically eco is gathered so far is basically wasting some dead units, 2 banks in the thing, and Stanley is deciding to forfeit game number 5, and I have to believe he's given the 3rd game or the 5th game to Klestree in this series. So
yeah,
unfortunate about the timing. Both players did agree to an 18 GMT series to be played, and we didn't start too much later after 18 GMT with a few quick games to open up the series with. So really unfortunate. I'm kind of a bit in awe that Klestree is now going to move into the finals, and I guess this is going to class as a admin decision to Klestree.
Yeah, I think Klestree is going to advance to the finals. Assuming that it's going to be an admin decision.
Well, you got to remember from Stanley though. Props to him for essentially rehosting that previous game, and we had a very entertaining game on Arizona.
That could have gone quite differently.
Yeah, so I don't know what Stanley needs to go for right now. It's a Sunday night, but we can't speculate. And in this game, you can tell he wanted to finish this game very quickly by going 5 Cossack, 4 Cossack, 13 Strail, training endless batches of Strats and Musketeers with no units in queue.
And no villagers in queue.
No villagers, so, no market techs, I don't think, as well. So not even making use of that free market you get given with to start. So even Kaiser's suggested in the chat that Stanley Winston was starting to tilt there, but if Stanley had other things in his mind, as in other real world commitments outside of the game, we have to respect that. And
that certainly comes first.
Luckily for Stanley, though, it is big in the division. There was no prize money on the line. I'm sure he's not going to be too disappointed by this series, and it gives Klestree more games moving on into the next series.